Was Blackpink's latest album not liked? For this deadline album that we had been eagerly waiting for a long time, counting down the days and even setting alarms to wake up on the day it was released, why are people making so many negative comments? Let's talk about this today. When Blackpink returned as a group after more than 3 years, expectations in the K-pop world were incredibly high, because this was not just a new album, it was also the return of one of the biggest girl groups in the world to the stage. However, after the deadline mini-album was released, the picture that emerged was quite interesting. On one hand, there were strong sales numbers and huge global interest. On the other hand, there was an atmosphere filled with serious criticism spreading across social media, discussions, and even fans criticizing the album. Some listeners said they liked the album, but at the same time, a very large group was saying that this comeback from Blackpink did not create the expected impact. In fact, some internet users made even harsher comments, stating that the album was a disappointment compared to the group's previous works. So what really happened? Why did such a huge comeback become so controversial? To understand the answer to this question, we need to go back a little and look at how the deadline era began. Blackpink had last created a major impact in the music market with their big group album Born Pink. The world tour that followed the album once again demonstrated the group's global power. However, after this great success, a long period of silence began in terms of the group's music. Months passed, then months turned into years. While fans were patiently waiting for a new Blackpink album, the members of the group had been focusing on their individual projects. Jisoo, Jennie, Rose, and Lisa were doing solo work in different fields and continuing to grow their own careers. That is exactly why, as soon as the deadline album was announced, expectations almost reached an explosive level. People were not just expecting a new song, but a huge comeback, because the members' solo careers were progressing incredibly well. And we thought that if they were this successful individually, something even bigger would emerge when they came together. In my opinion, with the girls' solo success, Blackpink became 100 times bigger than its normal state. And during this period, the way fans looked at the group also changed. We expected more incredible, more different, bigger things from them as a group, but Deadline could not meet these expectations. However, despite all of this, with the release of the album, Blackpink's global power once again became evident. The first-day sales numbers were quite impressive. According to Hanteo data, Deadline sold more than 1.46 million copies on its first day. This number placed Blackpink among the strongest first-day sales in K-pop history. At the same time, the song Go entered the Spotify Global Chart at number 9. The entire album also ranked among the top positions among K-pop releases on the platform. At first glance, the picture looked quite good, because the group had been awaited with great curiosity for a long time. However, although the album's first-day sales were extremely strong, in the following days the numbers dropped rapidly. In fact, they crashed. When the first day was 1.46 million, how many albums do you think were sold on the second day? 800,000, 500,000, 100,000? No, none of them. On the second day, only around 8,000 albums were sold. On the third day, the number was again around 8,000. This change caught the attention of some internet users and quickly started to be discussed on social media. Some people in the industry said that the days when sales dropped coincided with the weekend and that sales decreased because of the working hours of physical stores. In addition, Blackpink had not yet started promotional events such as fan meetings or album raffles. These types of events are among the strategies in the K-pop industry that can significantly increase physical sales. For this reason, some analysts argued that the first-day numbers were more important and that Deadline's initial performance was actually quite strong. In other words, the numbers created both success and controversy at the same time. There were also various comments about the album's title track, Go. Some critics argued that the structure of the song was unusual and did not provide the melodic structure that listeners were expecting. The chorus of the song became the most discussed part, because according to many listeners, the chorus did not contain a strong vocal like in a classic pop song. In other words, the chorus of the song was not built around lyrics. There were no lyrics in the chorus. People criticize this situation a lot because one of the things that makes a song memorable is actually the lyrics in the chorus. However, unfortunately, the chorus of Go consists of rhythm instead of lyrics, and people did not like this situation. In fact, someone wrote something like this in the comments: "The song constantly makes you feel like a big moment is about to arrive, but that moment never actually happens." Many people also wrote that the structure of the song resembled festival music and felt too empty compared to a real K-pop song. If you ask me, the biggest problem with Go is the absence of the choreography that makes Blackpink Blackpink. Blackpink. In other words, people cannot make a dance challenge video with this song right now because there is literally no choreography. I think it is very strange for a K-pop group to release a song that cannot have choreography. I am still waiting and hoping that in the coming days they will share dance practice videos again like they used to. Some of the comments about the song Go were also related to the overall structure of the track. Some people said that the song was very similar to the formula Blackpink had used before. For this reason, some critics argued that the song Go did not actually offer anything new. According to them, it was simply a reused version of the same formula. Some listeners also said that the song felt even emptier compared to previous works, because within this formula it was thought that the chorus took up less space. Another discussion about the album was about the lyrics. Some listeners said the lyrics were quite simple and contained cliché expressions. According to these comments, the lyrics contained general pop messages rather than telling a deep story. Some lines even became the subject of mockery on social media. However, some fans argued that these criticisms were exaggerated. According to them, Blackpink's music had always been built on energy and atmosphere rather than strong messages. For this reason, the simplicity of the lyrics was not a big problem for them. Another notable topic about the Deadline album was the length of the album. The mini-album consisted of a total of 5 songs. However, the total duration was around 15 minutes. This situation did not meet the expectations of some fans, because since Blackpink was returning as a group after a long break, many people were expecting a bigger project. Another event that amplified the discussions about the album was the leaks. Before Deadline was released, some of the songs had already appeared online. People who listened to the tracks Champion and Me and My in particular made comments like, "I already knew this, and there's no song in the album that excites me because I've already heard all of them before." As if that was not enough, all the details of the album were shared on YouTube even before the album was officially released, and this also caused backlash. I had actually explained these events in this video of mine before, so those who are curious about the details can watch it. After the Deadline album was released, another discussion that quickly grew on social media was about how long each member sang in the songs. At first glance, the distribution between members in some songs might seem balanced, but the situation was not really like that. For example, in the song Jump, Jennie had the longest time with approximately 32 seconds. She was followed by Rosé with about 23 seconds, Lisa had around 22 seconds, while Jisoo had around 20 seconds. This difference was noticeable but not extremely large. However, in the title track of the album, Go, the vocal times were more clearly separated. Jennie sang the longest part of the song with approximately 35 seconds. Rosé was in second place with about 30 seconds. Lisa remained at around 16 seconds, while Jisoo had the shortest time with approximately 14 seconds. This difference caught the attention of some fans. In particular, the fact that Jisoo had noticeably less time compared to the other members became a topic of discussion. However, the real big controversy emerged because of another song. One of the most talked about songs on the album was Me and My. By the way, Me and My is also my favorite song on the album, so I wanted to mention that as well. In this song, it was calculated that Lisa sang for about 54 seconds. This corresponded to almost half of the song. In contrast, Jennie had around 22 seconds. Rosé and Jisoo each had around 9 seconds of time. This difference spread very quickly on social media. Many fans thought that this distribution was quite unbalanced. In other words, while Lisa was singing for 54 seconds, Rosé and Jisoo having 9 seconds really seemed strange. Another song on the album, Fuckboy, showed a completely different distribution. In this track, Rosé had the most vocals with about 57 seconds. Jennie had around 40 seconds. Lisa stayed at about 31 seconds, while Jisoo sang a part of around 29 seconds. Although this distribution seemed more balanced, throughout the album, Jennie, Rosé, and Lisa were placed at the center of different songs depending on the track. However, Jisoo often remained at the bottom in terms of total time. For this reason, after the album was released, the most talked about member became Jisoo. In many K-pop forums, claims appeared that Jisoo was not given enough space in the album. Some fans said that she was almost invisible in the songs, and this video came back into discussion again after this distribution. What do you think about this? Do you think Jisoo was pushed to the background in this album? I'm curious about your comments. The discussions about the Deadline album were not limited only to the songs. The music video prepared for the album's title track Go also started a wide discussion on social media after it was released. At first glance, the video looked like a very large production. Large sets, different costumes, and fast scene transitions stood out. However, after the video was watched a few times, some internet users noticed that certain scenes looked unusual. Some comments began to appear saying that in certain scenes the background looked quite quite artificial and that some objects did not look physically logical. In other words, just like in Jump, the use of AI and green box in the Go music video was heavily criticized. The criticism about the music video was not limited only to the claims about artificial intelligence. Some viewers also criticized the production quality of the video. There were people who believed that the music video of a globally huge group like Blackpink should have had a much larger production. Some fans said that the girls' outfits looked simple and that the scenes were not detailed enough. People questioned this by saying that the clip looked low budget. Blackpink is considered one of the biggest K-pop groups in the world. The group has been organizing world tours for years and performing in massive stadiums. Because of this, many people thought that the music video should have had a production on the same scale. One of the most talked about issues about the album was, as we discussed in previous videos, the two names involved in the production of some songs on the album, Dr. Luke and Diplo. Because these two names had previously been involved in harassment allegations, their presence in this album was heavily criticized and many people started to boycott the album and Blackpink because of it. So, as you can see, on one side there were fans who liked the album and said that the group was trying new things. On the other side, there was a group of people who believed that this comeback did not meet expectations. For this reason, the overall picture surrounding the album was quite complicated. Deadline had made a strong commercial start. However, at the same time, it became one of the most controversial projects in Blackpink's career. Right now, one thing is certain. Discussions about the Deadline album seem likely to continue for a long time because every step taken by a huge group like Blackpink continues to create a big impact in the K-pop world. Don't forget to share your thoughts about the album with me in the comments. We have come to the end of today's video. I love you all very much. Goodbye.